first of all, just to say that it's a privilege to inaugurate this session focused on the future of metropolitan mobility. So, you know, it's our good fortune. We are lucky to live in a city, in a metropolitan area with exemplary quality of life. And of course, our mobility model is part of its quality. Despite its deficits and shortcomings, for sure is one of the keys of this high standard of living. As example, Sabadell, Terrassa, big cities in Catalonia now have a real metro, a real connection every 112 seconds, or Hospitalet, the second largest city in the country, it's connected every 4 minutes, and we are investing in increase this frequency. So we have a good mobility systems, but of course, it's not a moment for complacency. So instead of this, we have to intensify our efforts to advance in a sustainable mobility system, because in the next 50 years, the metropolitan areas will change completely. We are in a country of 8 million people, and in a few years we will be 10 million, and most of these people will live in the metropolitan area. So we have to provide them with a good system of mobility, because at the end, we do not move trains. We always say the same. We move people. We provide the people with a system of connection that improve their lives. In this sense, we will have a debate, an exposition to talk about innovative solutions. And let me introduce the speakers. So the first vision will be articulated by Javier Ortigosa of the Metropolitan Area of Barcelona. It involves the forward-thinking task in designing urban future. So envisioning the city of the future in this sense, how we should provide mobility in a metropolitan area that will have big part of the 10 million of inhabitants of the country. The second vision is very complementary. How we move is important, but where and how we live is even more important. So we have invited Elisabet Cirici from Incasòl, because the vision of housing and mobility must complement each other. And the third and last perspective is from the point of view of the users. So, as I said before, if our efforts are towards makes life of people easier, better, we want to know what the users think. So we have invited Adrià Ramírez, President of the Public Transport Platform. Thank you, Adrià, for coming. All of this will be moderated by Paola Rodríguez, from the Catalonia Polytechnic University and from CENIT, who with her academic vision and experience in international projects will surely also provide good reflection on how to prepare this future. So nothing more on my side, just to invite you, if you haven't done, to visit also our stand, where you will have our ideas of the future that I hope, I'm sure, will coincide with the ideas that the speakers will express in this session. So thanks you for coming, thank you for being part of this session, and I give you the words.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming and joining this session. I would like to start, already the President introduced our speakers, but I would like to give you a little bio from them. So starting from Elisabet Cirici, she's director from Incasòl. She has professional experience related to architecture, urbanist director from the Catalan government from 2018 to 2021. She worked from 2011 to 2018 as a land and housing deputy director and operation director in Incasol. And amongst others, she has taught in several postgraduate and master courses on spatial planning and urban management. Second, we have Adrià Ramírez. He is president of the Association for the Promotion of Public Transport, PDP, and he's computer engineer from UPC, and he holds a master in transport planning from the University of Leeds. And last but not least, Javier Ortigosa. He's head of the Mobility and Infrastructure Office at IMB since 2016. He has a doctorate degree in traffic engineering from ETH Zurich, and his primary research expertise is on traffic networks and macroscopic traffic control mechanism. So, to start now with this conversation, we will focus on four main subjects. First, the long-term infrastructure anticipating the exhaustion of the capacity. Second, the vulnerabilities that climate change will cause in the infrastructure in long term. Third, the digitalization strategy and how this affects the users. And last, the energy efficiency and how the recovery in trains. These four main subjects will be divided in these three views. So now I would like to start with Elisabet. I would like to start by asking you the relevance of your experience and background in relation to this topic, the role in railways in the future of mobility.
Hello, Paola, and hello, everybody. First of all, thank you for inviting us to this presentation. As the President have said a moment ago, we are very focused on trying to find the best planning for the people to live and work in the cities in the best way. So we can't forget in any place the need of having good connections wherever we are planning the cities. Within these planning decisions, the railway is clearly the key element for urban transformation. So obviously it's a key point that we have to take in account. And not only now, because the tradition of the cities in Catalonia and most of the countries, wherever there is the train, the cities grow in a different way towards other cities where there is no train. And if we watch the perspective that IDESCAT has done for the next 10 years of where the population will be placed or moved in the next 10 years, we can really clearly see that on those cities around the metropolitan area that will have the railway stations near will be the places that will grow as a perspective, more than the 10% of their actual growth. So really, the position of the railway and the stations is planning where the people is going to move in the future. According to the planning, obviously we have, as I said, we have to be very careful of how to place the stations. The stations have to become the central spots where the life of the cities will be produced, because they are the places where the commercial areas will be placed, other activities will have to be organized around, because the amount of people that the railway transport can move from one place to the other is completely different to other means of transport. So we have to take in account very importantly the railway modus of transport. But I would want to say that the train cannot reach everywhere. We are sure about that. So that's important. Those central spots that will be, and there are the stations, have to be intermodal spots that have to be branched out or that have to be able to distribute the mobility in other means of mobility, especially obviously public means of mobility, to be able to reach the people who are more than 15 minutes, I would say, from the distance from those spots. And finally, for this, for the question of the future. There are obviously some difficulties. We cannot avoid to understand the difficulties and try to cope with them. The railway implementation is rigid, so not easy to implement. The cost of this infrastructure is also very, very high. The occupancy of land, so the planning has to work together. The urban planning and the planning of the infrastructures, the railway infrastructures, have to go together. It's important that they do a comprehensive work so that the definition of where and how is done in a unique way of thinking, so that the planning can reserve the land in advance, if possible. And finally, just to say that the transport network is difficult to implement, and also the decisions that maybe the politicians can make in advance will last a certain time of a period of time to be implemented. But it's important to have it planned in advance, to have everything prepared, and the reservation of the land and so on.
Thank you, Elisabet. Now, Adrià.
Adding to most of the things that Elisabet has said, I think train stations need to be close to where people live, so we need to plan train stations close to where people live and plan places to live close to train stations. So both things, we need to think it both ways. This is very clear if we say it in general, but too many times we are seeing here in Catalonia, we're seeing it in Spain, we're seeing it in France, that especially for high-speed train stations or medium-distance stations, people ask the trains to be out of the city, not because they want to use those trains, but because they think that the railway is really annoying them in their normal life, and the still railways are seen from some part of the population and some part of the public servants as a barrier. So we need to find ways really to show that those are not barriers. We need, of course, to integrate them. We need to make them not barriers of the city. But at the same time, we need to find ways to do that in a not very expensive way. And too many times we are saying that some people, some political parties are asking either to put those railways underneath, which really costs a lot and is only affordable for the really kind of big cities and places where a lot of people live, but also in Spain, many highway stations have been built outside of the stations. Here in Catalonia, we have the example, for example, of Salou. They used to have a station in the middle of the town, and now they have it a few kilometers away. And the number of users of that station has dropped down completely since they have moved it out of the center of the town. So this is something which is not only to say here, we need to implement it, we need to find ways. And I like a really good example, for example, in the UK, in the city of Leeds, the railway infrastructure just crosses the whole city. It goes on the top. And what they have made is to put under the railway businesses that do have a high volume of music on it. So clubs, haircut, shops for clothes. So all those are establishments that do accept having vibrations, do accept having noise, because they already have the music quite loud. So it's already an area that could accept that. And so the railway is not seen as something that breaks the city. And that could be, for example, very easily implemented in Girona here. So it's some kind of examples that we are not seeing yet, and we should see soon.
Now, Javier.
Hello everyone. I work, as Paola said, at Area Metropolitan of Barcelona. It's there, the stand behind Barcelona stand. You can check it. We have nice videos and so on. Today you are in Hospitalet de Llobregat. You are not in Barcelona. You landed in El Prat de Llobregat, which is another city. You are here in Hospitalet, and maybe you are sleeping in Barcelona in a hotel, right? So this is the metropolitan area of Barcelona, 3.2 million inhabitants, and in the future, in the horizon 2050, we will be about 3.5 million inhabitants. In this horizon, 2050, is where we work. We work in the urban master plan of the metropolitan area of Barcelona. And of course, this urban master plan is thinking about sustainable mobility and how we decarbonize mobility and how we should be upgrading the actual numbers to more or less, when we talk about public transport, to twice the amount of people that we have right now. So we should be moving around 5 million people per day. That is the target. It's not a forecast, it's a necessity, right? So it goes without saying that in that future scenario, railway will have a very, very relevant role. So that's what we are trying to do.
Thank you very much for your insight. Now let's move to the second question regarding the expansion of rail infrastructure. I would like to talk about the projects of transport infrastructure to meet the future demand and how these affect urban planning. I would like to mention the project that is carrying out now is a tunnel of 4 kilometers with 3 new train stations that will extend Barcelona's FGC line from Plaza España to Gracia, via Francesc Macià, which is due to be opened by 2030. It is expected that this connection will improve the travel times of users, among other things, intermodality improvement, especially in this densely area that has a lot of facilities. I would like to start by asking Elisabet about the impact of this project from the perspective of mobility and housing.
Yes, I think that this project is a very good news, that this project is going to start very soon. It's really great news. It will have a very big social and economical impact. I've read that the investment is about 300 and 400 million, so it's a big investment, but also a really big impact. I would say that we have to analyze the result of this new project for the people who will just use it as going through the city, because they come from the line coming from Garraf area towards the Vallès. So many people will use it just for going through, and other people will be using it as metro stations. So it will have an impact on the people who will live around, so very impact on the urban surroundings. These people will have the possibility to reach the metro or the subway in this less than 15 minutes walk. So it will be a great improvement. Also the intermodality that it gets, because you can connect with, for example, with the tram. The tram will be connected to this metro line or railway line, and so have good access to the universities and to the Baix Llobregat villages that have the tram connection. So I think that the impact is really important. I just wanted to add that, and maybe remind that all the traffic or the transport, the people that are going from one place to another within the metropolitan area, to the moment, and also with this project, go to the center of the city, join the people that are moving within the city, and then go back out of the city. So we have to think also on other means of transport, so that people don't need to go always to the center of the city, or in this case, they don't need to go to Plaza Catalunya. They need to go, they will be able to cut, and obviously they will gain a lot of time, and that's really important. But I think that also we have to think on other means of transport. And before we were talking, before the meeting, I was saying that, for example, there's the project, there was a plan, I think it was in 2010, it was written, about the orbital ferroviaria that it joins middle-sized cities around the metropolitan big area of the city of Barcelona. It is planned, it's really interesting. It goes from Vilanova, Vilafranca, through Granollers and back to Mataró. So it goes all around the metropolitan area. And for sure, when we will be able to do that project and take it on, it will be also really interesting for the mobility of the metropolitan area.
Thank you. Now, Adrià, from the user's point of view.
I mean, always when we have extra stations, extra lines, it's good news from the users. I think in this case, this line, if somebody wants to kind of learn a little about a bit, is very interesting as an enlargement of a regional line, of a metropolitan and regional line, because as Elisabet said, many people coming from the west side of the city will be able to not to arrive to Plaza España, but to arrive further inside. So that's good news. We think that one of the main problems right now in Barcelona, it's not the public transport on the city, not even in the metropolitan area, which starts to be a little bit, but especially outside of the metropolitan area. We have to start thinking, I mean, this Congress is called the Smart City Expo. We have to start thinking not only in cities, but in the regions, because cities are nothing without the regions that they are capital of. In that case, just one concern. One of the big demand attractors of this line is the hospital. There's one of the biggest hospitals in Barcelona, which is planned to be moved out of the city. Again, we need to think integratedly urban planning with transportation, because at the same time we need to put train station next to where people live, we need to put train station next to where people go. So we have a big building there, which is one of the biggest hospitals in Barcelona, and we're moving it out. What are we going to put there? Are we going to still put some services that people are going to move? Are we going to still keep, for example, some medical service there, which would make sense? And B, will we still have public transport and good public transport connection in the next place where the hospital is going to be built? So those are kind of questions linked to it.
Thank you. And Javier, from the urban perspective?
I think that is a small piece of line which is very, very important, because as you know, many of the railway investments have been radial, right? Because they are the ones that make more sense. Now we have a problem because we need to cover the outskirts of the cities. And by doing that, we are connecting two radial lines, and we are giving connection to two sides of the perimeter of the city, Baix Llobregat and Vallès. So just by connecting those, we are providing a bigger service to the whole metropolitan area. So that is good news. But this is short, medium term, we would say, 2030. We would need that this new line will open new questions. What do we do with Castelldefels, Cornellà? Should we be still operated by ADIF, or should we be integrated into this new structure? I leave it here.
Thank you very much. So now let's move to infrastructure resilience. It's important now the sustainability point of view, and based on FGC committed to the 23 agenda and the SDGs. FGC has committed to reach carbon net zero by 2030. One of the main aspects is to integrate the adaptation of climate change in the planning, building, and maintenance of infrastructure to cope with extreme weather, like you can have seen lately, the heavy rains and long-term droughts. I would like to start by asking Javier about climate condition and their integration with infrastructure from a sustainable mobility perspective.
Okay, as you all know, we have a bit of a climate problem, right? So on one side, we need to do actions to mitigate that, and it's obvious that railway transportation can do that because it can help decarbonizing mobility. At the end, it's the most efficient way of transporting people. It can transport it's the mode that transports as much people with a smaller space and a smaller amount of energies. So it's really a smart mobility and not that much autonomous mobility and so on. So we need to be transporting people by trains, and then from the adaptation perspective, also railway provides us with a more compact solution, right? We are experiencing a big problem with heat island effects in our compact and dense cities due to, among other conditions, road pavements, right? We are able with railways to transport many people with smaller space and allowing to have a more permeable land for other uses. And finally, we need to think about resilience, right? We are experiencing more climate extreme events, and we will have more in the future. So we need to put the railway and public transport as the most critical infrastructures that we have for mobility in our country, right? We cannot afford to fail. So we need to put all the techniques to monitor and to prevent accidents that can derive from climate extreme conditions.
Thank you. Now, from the point of view from Adrià and Elisabet, about the aspect that you consider in the infrastructure adaptation and resilience.
Me first? Okay, I think it's a very important topic, and that obviously not only for the railway infrastructures, we need to minimize the impact of climate change in all the infrastructures, because all the infrastructures are important for the life of the people. I would say, for example, the roads, obviously, but also infrastructures and services and other electricity grids and so on. So all of these infrastructures must be adapted and protected to these changes of climate change. And the planning, intelligent planning or smart urban planning could be part of the solution also, because we have to think about where we're planning our new developments, what risks we have to avoid, how to cope with the risks. So I think that on the planning discussion also, it's important to start with understanding which are the risks, or which risks we will have in the future, and try to prevent them during the first moment of the planning. Other thing is on those infrastructures that we already have. Obviously, we have very important infrastructures that have to be adapted. And that work is not easy, because it obviously has a cost, and sometimes some of them have to be removed because of flooding areas or having new water levels and so on. That will have to be understood, and there will have to be investment for that in the future.
Thank you, Adrià.
I think very similar to what they have said. If we need trains to reduce the impact of climate change, we need to protect those trains for from any risk that might come. And one of these risks is precisely the consequence of climate change. In that sense, to my understanding, FGC does not have yet major problems, if I'm correct. But we have another line here, if you go to Mataró, which is really next to the sea, and from time to time there are so the sea raises that affect them, and some voices that say that this line will become unviable, etc. If we have been able to make, as a human society, what the engineering has been able to make, we should also be able to protect our critical infrastructures, our green infrastructure like railway lines. And of course, here in the Mediterranean, we do have climate change impacts, but probably not compared to what somebody in the Northern Sea or in the British Islands might have in those cliffs with those storms. They also face those kind of problems. So I think it's one of the areas in which innovation engineering should be able to find the right solutions to keep our railway infrastructure.
Thank you. Now let's move to the next question regarding energy efficiency in the system. In this regard, FGC reduces electric consumption through energy management, efficiency, and research, and replacing fossil fuels consumption. Since 2019, electrical energy has been 100% renewable origin, and since 2021, it has been 100% solar origin. I would like to start by asking Elisabet, from an urban management point of view, how plausible do you see the implementation of energy efficiency measures in other train systems?
Yes, you're asking me about other systems, because we have talked about the efficiency and energy efficiency and the railway transport, that's sure. Obviously, again, I go to the urban planning and building. We have a long way to go, I would say, to improve energy efficiency in the buildings and also in the neighborhoods, and consequently in the cities as a whole. So we have to work a lot on that. From our side and from Incasol work at the moment, we are doing two pilot projects, one at the urban scale and another in the building scale, to try to understand how could we improve this energy efficiency in those different scales. One of them, the first one, is an urban scale, where we are planning that the same sector will have to plan areas for energy, for getting the energy done, renewable energy in the same area. We are also working on a self-consumption energy community, because we think that what we will gain of the surplus of some of the activities can be at the same time used by the consumers in the same area. So those communities are really important as a future that we are trying to understand as a good way of working. And also this other pilot exercise that we are doing, it's between two buildings, a residential building and a public facility, where also the study of both buildings at the same time, and the possibility of placing renewable solar parks in the top ceilings of those buildings, and them working together will have a positive result for the whole. So I think that there's really a work to do, and we are trying to monitorize this projects so that we will have results in the future, to be sure that what we are trying to implement will be really effective in the future.
Great, thank you. And Adrià, now, from your perspective?
Basically, I think railways, we talk a lot about electric cars right now, and sometimes it seems that we forgot that railways are 80-90% electric already. And so all the strategy that I know FGC is following to also take this electricity from renewable sources, I think is totally key. And we really need to put really need to value how clean and how renewable and how kind of good for the kind of green strategies that we want to follow railway is. So this is something that while we also electrify vehicles that go on wheels, we know that most of the vehicles that go on rails have been already electrified, and they are working with renewable energy. So I think this is a very important aspect of railways.
Thank you, Javier.
Well, as President Toni Segarra said, we are about 8 million people in Catalonia. That means that we have about 4 to 5 million cars and trucks. We cannot, right now, we don't have the capabilities to electrify them. It's impossible. We don't have the materials, we don't have the batteries, we don't have the infrastructure, and we don't have the network, the power in the network to do that. So we really need to invest and to keep investing in infrastructure that we can plug to the network, and this is railway. So for me, this would be the most strategic point, and then the other that we should consider in the future, not only the renewable energy that we get, but also to try to take advantage of the offset between production of renewable energy and consumption of that. I don't have the answers.
Thank you. Now let's move to digitalization strategy and the relation with users. This will be more a tech question regarding the importance of digitalization strategy in the improvement of travel experience. FGC, as you know, is a digital company, and it has developed its digital strategy, which is fully aligned with its long-term agenda. One of the focus that they have is the quality in the client service for travelers. So FGC counts with different services such as online ticket sales, touch screens on the stations, connection points inside the trains for mobile device, and many other services that certify intelligent railway management. So I would like to start by asking Adrià, from a user point of view, it will be possible to consider more measures to improve the travel experience for user, and what do you think is considered the most effective measure for this?
Okay, so first of all, I will start from the end. I think that FGC has done a very good work on digitalization. There are small pieces that could be improved, but really think that is one of the good examples on how to do it. At the end, digitalization of public transportation, or from the point of view of the user, is helping the user in all the journey that goes from planning, booking, if needed, and paying. So when planning, what we need is information, very good information. And that comes from the very beginning. If you don't know the line, if you really want to know how to go from A to B, sometimes you not even know how to search the line. So the first thing we all going to do is we have a mobile phone on the pocket. We do have probably Google Maps or Apple Maps installed on it. We're going to Google that. So the first important thing is how we capture from the very beginning the user's attention, the potential user's attention, because that user might have other alternatives, might use other services, might use their private car, might take a taxi, might walk, might go on bike. So the first very important thing that some operators forget is that do not only make your own app, do not only make your own system, make sure that the apps that are widely used internationally, that have thousands of millions of downloads, do have your information. That's point number one. And this information can be static, how to plan your trip. It also should be dynamic. You should give last-minute information if the train, or in other cases the bus, is late, if there are any alterations of the service, etc. So that's quite important. I think on that side, FGC has done a very good work. Then still on the planning, when you go into the station, you should have also information panels telling when the next train is coming. Also, where is it going? If there are trains in more than one direction, if there are stops which are being stopped or not. In that sense, all these screens, all the information, all what we call the thermometers, those lines with the likes that say in which station you are, all that is done by FGC. I might say just a small element of improvement that I had to thought about it is that when FGC implemented the trains every 100-something seconds that Toni said, there was some small problem there technologically, and you could easily see that the next 3 trains were coming in the next minute, which I would love to have it, but it was not realistic. But just this small element created a little bit of suffer, even if it was a good one, but the fact that it was not working correctly created a big suffer because you really didn't know when your next train was coming, and that's really important. If we go forward, booking is not yet needed in the area in which FGC operates, but if tomorrow it operates in large distances, high-speed railway, you need to be in all the platforms. You need to be, for example, in Trainline, you need to be in the Deutsche Bahn platforms. You should have offered the passenger ways to book and to pay for your ticket, even if they are not coming to your website, your app. You should have your website, your app, but you should also be in the other ones. And last but not least, payment. FGC is operating in an integrated system, so the payment methods are not decided by the FGC, but by the government of Catalonia. We have the mobilitat. It's a very good idea with still a lot of things to improve. I think we have a lot of examples in the world. We should make the users be able to pay easily. So with the more payment systems as possible, bank card, smart card, mobile phone, and with the less hassle of having to think which is my ticket. Should be able to just tap and that the system calculates the best one for me. And the more we can go for what telcos do for us, which is you pay something a month and forget about it, that's what telcos has already 15 years ago made us to go for. So we don't think anymore how much time do we call, how much SMS we send, how much internet we use. That's something that we should go for on the payment, also for transportation, because we're going to behave the same. We're just going to use it. Just kind of it's the way that we also behave with the car. We buy the car, we pay our fuel, we pay the mechanic, the reparations, and we only think about tolls. The only cost that we think for the gas is about tolls, which is the one that we perceive when we are traveling. So that's the same. Technology should help us on this sense. And that's it.
Thank you. And now, Elisabet and Javier, any other aspect that you will have to highlight?
I just want to mention one thing. Still, with all the smart mobility, digitalization, and so on, I leave my home in Barcelona without a mobile phone, and it is still extremely difficult for me to read the public transit network. I know that FGC is doing a great work with that, but taking into consideration all public transport networks, it's much easier to get around with a car. I have signals, fixed signals, I have hierarchy of roads, I have many elements, I have maps. We are competing against 150 years of history, making maps, signals, all sorts of information systems for using your car. And we are not there yet with public transport. So we should be thinking about that, just as a comment.
Okay, they have already talked about the opportunities and the difficulties. Obviously, there's a way to go. I just wanted to add that digitalization is also really important and powerful tool for the energy management, and I think that's also important in this subject that we're talking today.
Thank you very much. So we only have 1.5 minutes left, so I would like to ask the last question regarding the future of mobility and rails. So from your perspective, how do you see this scenario for rails? Let's start with Adrià.
We hope that we see more and more rails in the future. Of course, they cannot arrive everywhere. The rails are the backbone of public transportation. So we need to have ramifications with buses, with shared cars, with any kind of with bikes, with any kind of systems. But we hope that this backbone of our public transport system is stronger, bigger, and used by more people in the future.
Elisabet?
From my perspective, we must put all the effort so that this means of transport has the best conditions of comfort, safety, and reliability, because people don't change from one means to the other just because to fight for the climate change or because of the respect of the environment. So we have to help the people and give them the best conditions for that they change to this means of transport. And for that, we have to know what the people are valuing. And I think that's the key point. We have to think about what the people value and then put all the effort on that so that in the future, in the near future, most of the people will be able to use this kind of means of transport instead of the transport that they are using at the moment.
Thank you, Javier.
Just one thing, simplifying. In the future, Catalonia needs to move twice as many people with public transport. So with that data, I mean, trains are absolutely essential. And thank you for being here, despite of the great party that are throwing our colleagues of urban mobility and being here.
Thank you for joining us. Have a good day.